to the top. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lauren Nobbs. She's a wonderful person. I've heard her present before on the topic of Copilot, which is why we started talking to her. She works at Microsoft. You can see she's a partner solutions sales manager in modern work. She's very well versed at using Copilot, and I'll hand it over to her because she's who you want to hear from, not from me. So, kia ora, Lauren, and over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining today. And then, again, if you've got any questions, please make sure to pop those in the Q&A and I'll answer those all at the end. So just starting off with a bit of an agenda for today. So I'm going to cover some of the insights we're seeing from AI and how it's changing the way that we're working. I'm going to cover what Copilot is, how it works, the different types of Copilots that are available, security behind it. I'll also go into how to prompt, so how to craft effective prompts for Copilot so you can get really valuable responses. And then I'll go into a demo as well, so I can show you some examples, some real life examples of how you can use Copilot yourself. So starting with some stats. So this is all from Microsoft's Work Trend Index report. This is a report that Microsoft run every year. They survey 31,000 people across 31 different countries. And that is looking at the way, how people are working, the way that people are working, how AI is going to change that. It's looking at productivity signals from Microsoft 365, labor and hiring trends from LinkedIn, and also surveys that they run of the Fortune 500 companies. And what we saw from the report this year, which was released in May, is, well, firstly, use of generative AI has nearly doubled in the 6 months prior to when this report was released. So we're seeing people turn to AI, and this is because, 2 in 3 people say that they don't have the time and energy to do their jobs. So we're in a position now where we're basically overwhelmed with digital communications. So we're receiving so many Teams messages or other types of messaging platforms, emails, meetings, notifications all the time, that it is taking us away from being able to do more high value focused work. So what this means is people are turning to generative AI for relief from that, so that they can free up some of their time so that they can refocus that onto more high value work. And it's having a really positive impact on productivity. So, and this is across all age groups. So they found that these insights across all age groups, and 90% of users who are using generative AI find that it helps them save time, it helps them focus on more important work, but also helps them be more creative and enjoy their work more because they're able to have more freedom in terms of what they spend their time on. So to go into a bit about what generative AI is, so it refers to artificial intelligence systems that are capable of creating new content like text, images, or music based on the data that they've been trained on. And this is all, it's to mimic human language and mimic human behavior by doing these types of tasks by leveraging machine learning. And in the context of Copilot, it's using generative AI to help automate and enhance certain types of tasks we're doing. So this could be finding information or finding content, drafting emails, creating or summarizing documents, that type of thing. And how we're interacting with generative AI is usually through the form of chat applications. So if you're using Copilot, using ChatGPT, any of these other types of systems that are available, it's in a chatbot type is how you're interacting with it. And what Copilot uses is natural, and these other AI systems you may be using as well, as it uses large language models, and they are large language models, are AI systems that are trained on massive amounts of public data. And it's what gives these tools the ability to read and understand human language. And it's also what gives it the ability to respond like a human as well. It's also leveraging natural language processing. And we can think of natural language processing as being the bridge between human language and machine understanding. So again, it's what enables Copilot to read human language, understand it, comprehend it, and also reply back or respond to us as if it was a human as well, using natural human language. And with natural language processing, there's other capabilities around it being able to understand context, do language translation, that type of thing that makes the interactions more human-like as well. So yes, determining sentiment, things like that. In terms of what Copilot is, so Copilot is Microsoft's AI-powered digital assistant that is designed to help people save time and work more productively. So it's called Copilot because it's not designed to replace people. It's designed to work alongside them and complement the way that they work by making them more productive and saving them time on the individual tasks that they are doing. So really key to understand that it's the purpose of Copilot is to work alongside you. It is to help you improve the way that you're working, not designed to replace you as well. And I think when we're talking about what Copilot is, it's also important to understand what Copilot or what any generative AI tool that you may be using is doing and what it's not as well. So it's designed to be your assistant. It is also not a human though, so it doesn't have human emotions, it doesn't have human judgment, all these types of things. And this is why it can't replace a human, because it doesn't have that human judgment and that human understanding that we have. It's also not perfect, and no generative AI tool is. So it's all trained on public data. This can mean, like in public data, there is inaccuracies. It can mean that sometimes there is inaccuracies in the responses that we get. So it's important that there is a human reviewing that. At the end of the day, the information that we provide people, that we, the information that we write or we email, we're responsible for that. So it's important that you do review anything that's created by generative AI so it's in line with what your expectations are. It's also not a mind reader, so this is where the prompting piece is really important. So what information you give Copilot is going to influence how valuable the response is back, and I'm going to talk through later in this presentation how you can piece together your prompts to Copilot to get really valuable responses and what type of information you should include. And it's also not a full automation tool. So I'm going to be focusing mostly today on the consumer version of Copilot because this one is available to anyone, anywhere. There are other types of Copilots as well that are highly customizable, that can be extended and can be customized to replicate business processes. So that is possible. But the Copilot we'll be looking at today is the consumer version. So to kind of explain that, so there are about 120 different types of Copilots that are available, so there is a lot. So what I'm going to be talking about is this one, and the first one here, which is just Copilot. Again, this is the one that anybody can use, any customer, whether or not you are a Microsoft customer or not. I'm also going to briefly talk about some of the other Copilots that are available that you can use as well. So Copilot with Enterprise Data Protection, Copilot Pro, and Copilot for Microsoft 365. So to cover, I guess, briefly what the differences between these are is the Copilot we're looking at today, consumer version. So this uses that large language models that I talked about. It also has web grounding, and I'll explain what web grounding means, but this means it can access web information, so current, public, up-to-date web information in the responses. There is another version, which is Copilot for Enterprise Data Protection. If you sign into Copilot with any kind of Microsoft 365 business account, you get Copilot with Enterprise Data Protection, which means that all of the security behind Copilot is in line with other business services Microsoft, like Exchange Online, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Then we have Copilot Pro. This is a consumer one. It's for personal, family, Microsoft subscribers. So anyone who creates an Outlook.com, Hotmail, Live, one of those types of accounts with Microsoft can use Copilot Pro, but it's a paid add-on. So this is it's kind of the same as it's just plain Copilot 1, but it's also got some extra features where Copilot is integrated into the Microsoft 365 apps, and I'll show that a bit more in the demo as well. And then we have Copilot for Microsoft 365. This is enterprise, or this is business only, so it's just for business accounts, and then sales and service, they are also business licenses too. So if you are a Microsoft customer for your organization, then those are products that you are suitable, and happy to answer questions about those. But today I'm going to be focusing on the personal account or the consumer products. So when it comes to why Copilot is really powerful, is it gives us a new way to search. And so what Copilot is doing is it doesn't just give you links, but it synthesizes information from multiple different sources to provide you a really clear and coherent answer. So it means that you get more direct and more tailored responses without needing to sift through multiple pages. So when we're used to just doing a Google, Bing, whatever search you're using, you get a list of links back. But Copilot is going through and sifting through all of those to cross-check information and provide you with a complete answer. So it means we can get much more quality and valuable responses when we're looking for information or we're doing research. But not only is it good at looking for information, helping you find information, but also for doing things like creating content and for generating images, creating tables, doing summaries or comparisons, things like that. So it's very, very powerful. And a lot of people are now going to using Copilot as their main way to search because of how the value of the response they can get back and how much quicker it is to find information. So for example, like if we're doing just a standard search in a search engine, and I said, what are the latest advancements with generative AI? For example, you would normally get like a list of links to articles, research papers, news stories, all of that information. You would have to click on each of those links, read through that content, and then piece that information together yourself. If you ask Copilot, what's the latest advancements with generative AI, for example, it would then search for the most recent and relevant information, synthesize that, and then provide you with a really concise summary. So super powerful. And so what it's using is we've got GPT-4, this is a large language model it's using for text, and then DALL-E 3, this is the model for images. So this is what allows you to generate images with Copilot. And then there's also no knowledge cutoff. And this is a really key part. So one of the risks that we talk about when it comes to using generative AI is AI hallucinations. And this can happen when, basically it just means when a generative AI tool, I'm going to call it Gen AI for short, comes up with an incorrect response, basically. And how this happens is large language models that all of these tools use, whether it's Copilot or something else, models that they use are static and they're pre-trained. So they're trained on data up to a certain point in time. So they might be trained up to data till September 2023, for example. So if you would ask, if it was just using a large language model, if you'd ask it a question about something more recent, it wouldn't have access to that information. So it would still come up with an answer, but it'd be incorrect. What's happening with Copilot is that it doesn't have any knowledge cut off because it's using the large language model, but it's also got access to public, current, up-to-date web information through the Bing Web Search Index. So this means that there's no cut off and it can provide you up-to-date and current answers. So if you ask a question about something more recent, it has access to that data. So we are far less likely to see any type of AI hallucinations because of this. The other part is that it's transparent about sources. So Copilot will give you citations for the data sources that it's taken or that's using to provide you answers. And this means that, I talked a bit earlier about how it's important that we are verifying the information that is generated by generative AI, or you do give it a check over. And when we have the sources and we can see where that information came from, it's much easier for us to be able to verify whether that information is correct. So if I asked a question about Copilot to Copilot, for example, and I saw that the response came back and that all the information it was providing me were to Microsoft.com websites, I immediately know that that is going to be accurate information. It also means that you can control the sources as well. So you can tell Copilot what type of sources you wanted to look at. So I could say, I'm writing a new business policy. Can you please refer to just the New Zealand government websites related to this? Can you please just look at the IRD website, the digital government website, something like that? So you can tell Copilot what sources you wanted to look at and how many as well when you're asking questions or you're doing searches. And then we have enterprise data protection. Now, again, this part is unique to the Copilot experience when you're signed in with a Microsoft 365 Entra account. So if you're signed in with a work or school account into Copilot, then you have enterprise data protection. And this means that the protection is in line with what meets the Microsoft product terms, the DPA. So it means that the security is basically in line with Microsoft's other commercial services like Exchange Online, SharePoint, OneDrive, things like that. So there's a lot of security behind it as well. So if you do have a Microsoft work account, then you have this experience too when you're signed in. I also get a lot of questions about where you can access Copilot and what browsers you have to use. One thing I want to say is you don't have to use Microsoft Edge to use Copilot. If you do open Microsoft Edge, and when I demo today, I will be in Edge, you have a Copilot sidebar, so you'll see an icon at the top of the Edge browser, but you can use Chrome or another browser if you want to. So in terms of the functionality and the capabilities is the same. So it still has all those AI-powered web search abilities and content generation abilities. And if you are using the work version, then you have that enterprise data protection as well in Chrome. The difference between using something like Chrome and Edge is just the features. So if you are in Edge, you can do direct web page or PDF summarization, and there's different automatic group tabbing, things like that. So there's a few more features, but the kind of the foundational capability is the same depending on whatever browser you want to use. And you can use Copilot in a browser, but there's also a mobile app as well. So you can use a mobile app. There is a new feature that has been rolled out, which is a little bit hard to demo, but I use this a lot on the mobile app where you can actually talk to Copilot. So you can talk to Copilot, ask questions, it will respond back to you. It's called Copilot Voice. And so that's a fun one that you can do in your mobile, but it's in your browser. You can be on your mobile phone, and you can also get a app on your PC as well. So there's a Copilot app you can use if you don't want to use it in a browser. And when we're working with Copilot, there's kind of 3 steps to it. So firstly, you enter your prompt, and again, I'll go into more detail later about what to include in your prompt. And then you can check the sources. So again, you're always going to have those sources. So then you can see where that information is coming from. You can go to the direct source if you want to get more detail or see the kind of original content. But then also, what I want to call out here is continuing the conversation. So when it comes to interacting with a generative AI tool like Copilot, the best experience we get is when we have a conversation with it. It's changing the way that we're used to searching for information. We're used to very keyword-based searches. So you would go into Google and you'd put some keywords in and you get a response back with your links. With Copilot, it's very conversational. So you can have a continuous conversation to get the response that you're looking for or get the content you're looking for. So I could say, draft me an email to organize a team offsite later this week. And then Copilot would write that for me. And then I could then say, can you rewrite this to be more formal or more casual? Can you add in some details about the location? So you can keep that conversation going to get to the point that you're really happy with as well. So here's an example of the sources you get, and you have some other options as well. So with the responses that you get, you can easily copy them out. You can download it as well if you want to export it. But some of the ways that we can use Copilot in the flow of our work is so summarizing information. So you can summarize PDFs you have open, articles, YouTube videos, and get it to create content. So this could be to write an email, write a report, write a social media post. You can get it to generate images. So if you want to create a brand new image, you can use generative AI to do that. You can use Copilot to do that. I also find it super helpful for being able to help you learn something. So what's really cool about Copilot is you can say you're trying to learn what generative AI is or what natural language processing is. You can get Copilot to explain it to you and then build up from there. So you could start by saying, I'm trying to learn about this concept. Can you explain this to me as if I'm 5 years old? And then you can say, can you go into more detail, explain this more technically, or kind of build up from that. Or another thing I like to do is say, if I'm trying to learn something completely new, can you create an analogy for me to understand it better? So there's a lot of different ways you can enhance your learning experience or make information be broken down better to understand it. And then do things like get it to create or compare different perspectives on things, different products. You can get it to make tables and things like that. So lots you can do from that perspective. And then very quickly, if there are any Microsoft customers, then you do have enterprise data protection. So again, that means that I'll just quickly cover this. If you are using a work Microsoft account, then you have all of the security, all the controls and the commitments align with the other Microsoft 365 services you're using, like Exchange Online, OneDrive, and SharePoint. It also means that there will never be, and there isn't any training of your data, things like that. And you have a lot of controls you can apply as well at an organization level. So you have things in the Microsoft 365 kind of security and compliance suites that you could do to manage how it's used in your organization as well. So for any Microsoft customers, there's this whole enterprise data protection piece as well. And if you want me to go into more detail, please drop something in the questions and I can do that. Cool. So before we go into the demo, I'm going to cover some information on prompting. So What is a prompt? The prompt is the question or the instruction that you're giving Copilot. So in that chat box or in that chat, and you're using natural language. So you don't need to, you can just say, as if you're talking to a human, what your expectations are. But the key thing about this is being detailed and making sure you include the right pieces of information. So when it comes to what an effective prompt or a less effective prompt is, so the main thing is going to be specific and detailed. So you want to include the kind of, most people just put something in like summarize this or write this, but the more detail around who you are, why you're doing it, what you're trying to do, all of that information helps the responses be more valuable, and it helps Copilot know what type of language to use. And that can be more than just kind of what you're trying to get to do, but also the tone, the purpose, like the format. So if you want this to be written in 3 paragraphs, 5 bullet points, put it into a table, that type of thing. All of that context around your expectations is really key too. If it's vague, it's going to be hard for Copilot to meet your expectations. And you've got to think about, I talk about Copilot being your AI-powered assistant, and it's the same if you had a brand new assistant who was helping with the task. If you just created this proposal for a customer and you didn't give them any more information about what it was for or what your expectations were, they wouldn't have enough information to do that task well. It's the same thing when we're interacting with Copilot. There are lots of different types of ways that you can prompt. So heaps of different prompting frameworks. So firstly, you've got zero-shot prompting. This is basically where you just give Copilot a task without any examples. And then you've got one-shot or few-shot prompting. And these frameworks are where you tell Copilot to do something. So in the example there, we've got a prompt around wanting to create a caption for a hiking trip photo. And this is where you give Copilot examples that it can use when it's creating the thing that you were asking it to do. So in this one, sunset vibes in Bali, and then vacation mode. So you've given an example, and then you've said now create something similar for a hiking trip photo. So one way of prompting is giving examples and then asking Copilot to do something. Train of thought prompting is where you walk through Copilot the steps that you want it to do, basically. So you might say, imagine you're this person and you're doing this task in this example here. So to prepare for a job interview, first research the company and the role. Next, review the common interview questions and practice your answers. Then choose a professional outfit and gather necessary documents. So you're walking through your train of thought, and that could be in this way, but also telling Copilot, imagine you're this person and doing this is another way too. And then instruction-based prompting, which is giving just explicit instructions on how to perform and complete a task, exactly what you want. So there's a lot of different ways, but the one I want to focus on is goal, context, source, and expectation. So this is the one that Microsoft recommends. And it's if you can remember these 4 things to include in your prompt, this is what I would go with. So if you're learning how to prompt, this is the kind of framework that I think is best to go with. And it's important when it comes to adopting AI, is that prompting is a really important part of that. And prompting is going to become a skill that we all need to learn, and that we will need to use, for the rest of our careers likely. So there is lots of research now about how many jobs are out there that are requiring people to have prompting skills. And it's quite different when it comes to to adopting generative AI to other types of IT, systems that we learn, in the sense that you're given a blank prompt box and you have to know what to put in that. So it's quite a different thing. It's not like we're learning a setting or a feature that we have to turn on. We're given a blank prompt box, and then we've got to think kind of what to put in that. So it can be quite challenging in that sense. It's changing the way we are used to interacting with technology. With that kind of conversational approach. So if there's anything to take away from prompting, it'd be include these 4 things. So the goal is what you want Copilot to do. So this could be write a blog post, write a business case, generate a summary, that type of thing. The context is, why do you need it? What's it for? Who's involved? So this might be a business case you're presenting to the senior leadership team. It might be a story that you're writing to show your 5-year-old, something like that. So the context will help Copilot decide the language to include and how to construct the content. The expectations is how it can meet your expectations. So this is really looking at the tone, the length of the content. So you might say, this is where you could say, explain this to me as if I was 5 years old, or explain this, take this technical document, turn this into non-technical language, or write this in formal language, or make this really clear, that type of thing, or put it into a 2-page document, things like that. And then the source is what information you want it to use. So when you're using Copilot in your browser or on your mobile phone, this might be telling Copilot to look at specific websites with specific sources. You might upload images for it to look at. If you're using it in more of the business context, then you might be referring to business data here. So that's what information you wanted to use when it is creating this answer for you. So there's a few different types of learning paths that teach you how to prompt. So this presentation will be provided afterwards, but you can see how when you add, I've kind of given you some examples of prompts, and how when you add those other extra pieces of information, you get more of a complete prompt. So in this example here, we've got the goal, context, source, expectations. So, this example here, provide a performance review for an employee. If you add the context, then you're saying the employee is a software developer who's been in a company for 1 year. The source is getting Copilot to look at the employee's performance metrics, project feedback, a self-assessment, and then expectations is you're telling it, again, what your expectations are. So providing a balanced review that highlights strengths, areas for improvement, and specific examples of achievement. So this is just an example of those 4 pieces coming together to create a really solid prompt that is going to get you a much more valuable response from Copilot. Okay, I'm going to jump into we'll jump into the demo now. So cool. So let's get started on this. Should all be able to see the Copilot screen. It said, Lauren, it's great to see you. Hopefully you'll see that now. So I'm currently in the consumer version of Copilot. So this is the one that is freely available to anybody. So you can go to copilot.microsoft.com on your browser now, or you could go on your download the Copilot app, and this is what you're going to get. So I'm going to walk through some different examples of what you can do in Copilot here. So first thing is exam prep. So if I'm wanting to do an online exam or a course, you can give Copilot, tell Copilot about the type of exam or training module you're going to do, and then get Copilot to create a practice exam. So again, getting Copilot in this, I'm jump into here. So I'm asking Copilot here to create that I'm planning to take the EMIS 900 exam. Can you give me questions related to that? It's going to practice exam to grade my knowledge and make it multiple choice. So it's a really good way. I find Copilot very effective for helping you learn. So whether that be feeding it a article that you want, that you're trying to learn about something, you could do that and then get Copilot to ask you questions about it. You could say, I've written this piece of content, how can I improve it? You might say, get it to break down different concepts or different ideas kind of into more easier language to consume. There's a lot of ways you can benefit, get Copilot to help you with learning. So in this case, exam. So I've said, what's the primary benefit here? And so now I can have this whole quiz-like situation with Copilot, and it will do that until I tell it to. So there we go. The next thing I'm going to show you is getting Copilot to do summaries of YouTube videos. So this is the kind of Copilot window here, but we also have this chat on this sidebar here. So this is the part that is specific to Edge. So you do need to be in Edge if you want to use a sidebar. This is where we can get it to look at the content that's on our screen and then help us with questions around that. So if I jump into this YouTube video here, I can say to Copilot, generate video highlights. What I want to call out though is down the bottom here, above the prompt box, we have this use relevant sources. So if you asked a question, so say I said, what are the key, so that's the question here. So the video is it's a user group and it's about adopting Copilot. So if I said, what are the key takeaways about adopting Copilot in here, if I didn't specify it was the video that I wanted it to look at, it would just find that from the web and using large language models. So when you're wanting it to look at just a piece of content you have open, make sure to change that here. I'm going to say generate video highlights. So especially if you've got like a blog post or a PDF open and you're wanting it to look at just that piece of information, you want to change that there. So this is a really quick way to get, when you've got long recordings of like your YouTube videos that you want to look at, to break it down. If you're using the business version of this, so if you are a Microsoft customer and you have Microsoft Stream, that's where all Teams recordings get saved. So one thing that I do is when I get shared recordings of previous meetings that maybe I haven't been invited to but are really relevant to me, I'll go into Stream and I'll say, and I'll ask Copilot, what are the, based on the areas of information that I'm looking for, I'll just get Copilot to say, did they talk about this topic? Can you give me the timeline markers, the key points about this? And then it's got the timeline markers here, so I can just watch the parts that are most relevant to me from that. So I found it really effective for getting quickly up to speed on any kind of recordings of things that I may have missed, or of YouTube videos where I don't have time to possibly watch the whole thing and I just want to dive into the part that is most relevant to me. So super helpful for that. And then we also have, so you can do this on YouTube videos, but also on PDFs as well. So let's start a new chat here. And then again, I'm just going to change this to say that I just want to look at this PDF here and not anything else. You also see you have an Ask Copilot button at the top on your PDF if you're using Edge, and that will open the sidebar. Say generate documents summary. Like you see here, it's 39 pages. So if I've got specific questions about something that may be in documents, it's a really good way to pull information out quickly. So rather than having to read through a whole document to get an answer, you can just ask Copilot. Say, kind of ask the question in natural language as if you were talking to a human, and it will find that answer for you and pull that out. And you'll see here everything that Copilot does in citation. So if I click on this, it's going to take me to that part of the document that it's referring to here. So when you're doing summaries of YouTube videos or of PDFs, it often does a quick summary first, and then you can get it to go through kind of more of the documents if you wanted to as well. All right. Cool. So those are some of the prompts I'm going to show you. I'm going to jump back into the Copilot view here as well, show a couple of other things. So the voice one here, so if you have the talk to Copilot option, if you do this, this is where you can just talk out loud to Copilot and it will respond to you like a human. So you can actually have a conversation with Copilot, like a back and forth discussing something. But you can also upload images. So I'm going to do that now. And you can get Copilot to do image analysis. So what first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to upload an image. In this case, it's the sky tower. I obviously know what this is, but anyway, tell me about this building. Let's say you have an image, we've been traveling or something like that, and you want to get some more information. You can send Copilot images, it can read it and then give you information about what is included in that information. So here we go. Now it's that, and it can tell me about it being the sky tower. So that is super powerful. What I also use this image analysis thing to do as well was also for translating things. So the next image I'm going to upload here is of a packet of lollies, I think. And I'm going to say, which is in another language, translate. I can't type. So if you, it doesn't need to do, so it can do analysis of images, but also do language translation. So this is what another capability of natural language processing is, doing translation. And we'll see here, it's going to take all of that, which is in, none of this is in English, and it has translated that for me. What is interesting, and I'm going to mention this. So you'll see at the bottom here, it has said, it has called out that these are vegan and gluten-free. So one thing about with the consumer version of Copilot is it does learn about you. So it learns about things so that it can remember things about you so that the responses are relevant. So I use Copilot all the time. It's my personal consumer account, and I ask lots of different questions. So Copilot knows that I'm vegan and gluten-free. So it has actually specified that in the bottom part here when I've asked this question, because it knows that that is important information for me to know when it comes to ingredients. So it's actually quite powerful in the sense of the way it can learn about you so that it can make these responses more relevant to you, more personalized for you. This is an optional feature, so you can, if you want to, you can turn that off. If you don't want the results to be personalized to you, you can disable that. But if you want it to remember things so that you're not having to constantly repeat information about yourself, then it's able to do that. That is a unique thing to the consumer version. If you're using the business version, then it's not going to be learning that about you. It will just be doing that for the consumer one. Cool. So a couple of the examples I've given you so far, they are quite simple prompts, but you can also do really long and advanced prompts as well. So the next one I'm going to show you here is getting Copilot to create a newsletter. So I'm going to paste in here. Cool. So I've given Copilot, I said I wanted to create a newsletter, and the topic's going to be generative AI. So I want it to generate a newsletter and have the structure, which is going to have a generative AI news roundup, spotlight, and opinion. So when it comes to creating prompts, you can make them very detailed and actually quite big in terms of how much information you want to include. And I've created some documents where the information, what have I missed here? I was going to say, what I missed in that prompt. But anyway, you can build out these quite detailed prompts around what you're wanting to include, and then to get quite strong responses as well. So when I've used it for document creation, you can put a lot of information in it. It's like the examples I've given you so far have been quite simple in terms of what they are, but you can include lots of detail in your prompts if you want to as well. Okay, and the next thing I'll show you is image creation. So again, I said that you can use Copilot to create images as well. So it's got that DALL-E 3 model to do that. And the important thing when it comes to creating images is, this is an example, this is a very basic prompt, right? I'm just asking Copilot to create an image of a butterfly. But to get really cool and unique images, you want to tell Copilot things around kind of what background it might be, what art style, what colors you want it to include. So again, this is an example. It's a very cool image of a butterfly, but if I wanted it to be more unique to the purpose I'm using it for, I could say, create an image of a butterfly with, as Microsoft themes. I want to have red, green, blue, and yellow wings, and then a Microsoft building in the background. And so get really creative with the prompting in terms of looking kind of beyond just what you want the image to be, but also the background, the colors, the style of art, that type of thing as well, to get really creative images too. Okay, I'm going to jump into the Copilot for work here, or not work, but the one for enterprise data protection. So I'll go into here. Okay, and so when you've got, so I talked about Copilot Pro. So Copilot Pro is going to be the version that, this is the version that has your personal account, but you can pay for extra features. So this will mean that you can use Copilot in Word, and Excel, and in PowerPoint, Outlook, and OneNote. So you're still using a personal account here, but if you want to have kind of extra integrations into these apps, you can do that. So there's Copilot Pro. So this is the Microsoft 365 app integration with Copilot for personal accounts. And then you've got Microsoft 365 Copilot, that's for work accounts, with again a Microsoft 365 app integration. So we can then use Copilot in the flow of work we're doing in the Microsoft 365 apps. So I'm now going to get Copilot to create a Word document for me. So I'm putting in a prompt here. I'm saying I'm responsible for deployment for Copilot. I need to write a generative AI use policy using guidelines from the New Zealand government. So I wanted to draft an AI use policy that outlines benefits, risks, recommendations, and I want to be in New Zealand English. So there's a lot of context in there. There's a lot of instruction of what I'm wanting, and also make expectations. And so I've told Copilot I want it to be New Zealand English. I've said I wanted it to look at the government resources. So that's quite an example where I've got lots of these parts in my prompt. So then now we've got Copilot creating this Word document for me. So when you're using Copilot Pro or you're using the work version of that, which is the Copilot for Microsoft 365, you can start to use Copilot in the flow of the Microsoft 365 apps. So again, this, if you're in OneNote, this could be for summarizing notes. If you're in Excel, that could be creating formulas in Excel, PowerPoint to create presentations. If you're using it in Outlook, then you can use it to summarize email chains and conversations. So it's a lot more powerful features as well we can do in the Microsoft 365 apps with these products. Cool. I'm also going to jump into so I talked about if you are, so what I've showed you so far, the Word document that is using Copilot Pro. When I was using the kind of free consumer version, that's just Copilot. And then if you have a Microsoft 365 account, that you can use Copilot with enterprise data protection. And this is what this looks like here. It's through the Microsoft Office portal. You'll see I'm signed in with a work account up here, and I've got enterprise data protection. So you're getting a similar experience to the consumer version in terms of the functionality and the capability, but it's also, but you've got all the extra security as well from the enterprise data protection. So I'm going to show a couple more things that we can do with Copilot. So firstly, I'm going to do one for a trip planning. So I'm going to say, Copilot, can you please create an itinerary? So I live in Christchurch. I want to do a road trip around the South Island. And then Copilot's going to come up with an itinerary. I use this for doing things like if I'm going to meet a new customer, for example, I might say I'm looking for like a cafe that's near the office, especially if I'm traveling and I'm going to a different place. And I want kind of recommendations of where's local to that. So using it for planning travel is a good way to do it, or looking for locations. But this next prompt I'm actually going to show you is a good example of that synthesizing information from multiple sources. And so I'm going to ask Copilot here. So oh, yeah, here we go. So I'm just finding the prompt that I wanted to use. Oh, it's not coming up here. That's a good, no worries. Let's say, can you please provide? But what we can also do is get it to, I want to say, can you add a hotel recommendation from each location? So that's where we can keep the conversation going. So I might say, this is a great itinerary, but where can I stay in each of these places? And now I'll get Copilot to give me a hotel recommendation for each of them. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So this has now given me locations. So that's something by having that conversation, keeping it going, and adding additional prompts. It's going to help you get more detailed responses back, and then get it to the point that it's really complete. And you'll see down the bottom here, this is where we have the all of the citations. So if I was to find a hotel for each of these different locations, I would have to do individual searches for all of them, right? So this is where Copilot being able to kind of look across multiple sources and then package up the information for us makes it way more valuable and quicker to get the information that we need. So, and you can say more information about like what type of accommodation you wanted or something like that if you wanted to. But yeah, that ability to get kind of everything you're asking for packaged together is so effective for getting good responses. And when it comes to, so this is creating text for us, but I could also get Copilot to create it into a table. So it doesn't just need to be just text, you know, I can also get it into, so I'm going to say here, thinking of upgrading my phone, can you create me a pros and cons list of the new Apple and Samsung phones? And so I've asked it to create it in a table. So now Copilot's going to generate this in the form of a table. So you can think kind of outside of just kind of how you're wanting to, or what you're wanting it to give you in terms of information, but also how you're wanting to create that. So a table, I can then download that into Excel file if I want to. But again, keeping in mind that we can always keep prompting Copilot for more information. So I might say, can you provide some more detailed specs to the above table if I wanted to have more information? And then now it's going to break that down into more detail. And then again, we always have the citations at the bottom. and you can control those. So you can then say, I might say just look at the apple.com websites, just look at the Samsung websites, things like that if you want to as well. You always have suggested prompts as well. So this is trying to help you have those conversations. If you want to keep that going with Copilot, it will give you some suggested prompts. And we can also add files here as well. So in the Copilot consumer version, I could add images, and this one we can upload files. If you want to upload files, you can do that here as well. All right. Last thing I want to show you in here is getting it to rewrite content. So another way that people use generative AI is to help them with writing emails, writing communications. And so what Copilot is really good at is language, and what generative AI is really good at doing is language. So it might be taking something you've written and writing that into a different purpose, or so changing the tone. I've had customers say that and used it myself, where you're wanting to achieve something specific with the type of language you're doing. So you could say, how do I write this but make it empathetic but also not accepting responsibility, or how do I make sure this is really clear so it's going to be received really easily by the person receiving it. So getting a Copilot to help you with improving your communications as well. So this next prompt, I'm asking Copilot to take a very casual email down the bottom here to send to the team to get them to do their timesheets, but I've asked Copilot to make it really kind of formal in the way it's written. So when it comes to these prompts that I'm showing you as well, what you can start doing is, having your own library of prompts that you will use all the time, so that you can just be like copying and pasting this and then applying that to different communications you're writing. So I have prompts in my business account, for example, which are things like, it might be like summarize all of my communications I've had with this client, or I'm preparing to have a meeting with a new client. Can you break down their financial performance, organization structure, the global market position, things like that, their competitors, and then get a really solid overview of customers prior to meeting with them. So kind of building up your own library is really helpful in terms of having your own resourceful prompts so that you can keep using them that work really well for your role. Okay, that is everything I wanted to show you in the demo. I'm just going to jump into the chat and see if we've got any questions. Can I recommend some prompt engineering courses training? Absolutely. So there are some on Microsoft. You can still see my screen name. Cool. Microsoft Learn. On Microsoft Learn, we have a bunch of different ones you can use. So there is one that I like, which is called Crafting Effective Prompts for Copilot, and this will take you through how to do the whole like including the goal, context, source, and expectations. So I'm going to say what I can do is provide Craig a list afterwards with the prompts, so the trainings that I recommend most for doing training. So absolutely, but this is one of the ones that I find super helpful. It kind of walks you through here how to take basic prompts and improve them. So this is a really effective one as well. There's other ones that have examples of also like use cases and things and different exercises you can do as well. So does it automatically remember things about you? So the consumer version will. So when you just go to copilot.microsoft.com, and if you're signed in with a personal Microsoft account, it will. If you want that to not be enabled, you can turn that off. So it's just in your, do I have it in here? If you didn't want it to for any reason, remember things about you, you can come in here, go into your privacy settings, and then you turn off personalization. So you can turn that off at any time if you don't want it to. And then can you input a large PDF ask question document but keep it confidential? So you can't, so the next question here, sorry, is can you input a large PDF, e.g. 500 pages, and ask questions on that document but keep it confidential? So you would need to be using the one with, you need to be signed up a work account. So with the consumer version, you can't upload files at the moment. You can only upload images. But if you're a Microsoft customer and you have like a business account of any kind, then you can do that. Ooh, any other questions? I'll just check the chat as well.
Yeah, there's one in the chat, Lauren, if you have a look.
Yeah.
And Amy has raised her hand, so I've just asked her if she has a question.
Yeah, so with the free version again, so that completely free consumer version, you can't upload images, but with the work one you can. In terms of how many pages, I think there is a limitation. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I can double check that though. Feel free to flick me a message on LinkedIn as well, and I can come back to you on that. Oh, is there anything else that I've missed?
There's one there from David saying, is turning off personalization the same setting we'd change if we don't want organizational information stored by Microsoft?
This is in the consumer account. So Copilot, the consumer version, can't access any organization information. So it can't access any of your business data. The only way it could do that is if you directly fed it in. So you wrote out into Copilot information about organization. If you didn't want to use that, model training is off. So Copilot, the consumer version, isn't currently, to my understanding, doing any training off data, but this may be something that comes in the future, but you can entirely opt out of it. So if you wanted to opt out of it, you just turn off model training here, and then it won't.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions, Lauren?
Okay, sweet.
Well, is there any last thing you want to say, Lauren, before I close up?
No, that's kind of everything. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you do have any other questions. So I'm more than happy for people to do that. So
And is
yeah,
that easiest through LinkedIn?
probably yeah, easiest to LinkedIn. Just feel free to flip me a message, and I can come at you.
I'd say Lauren's pretty good at answering LinkedIn, so I'll give you that feedback. Yeah.
Cool.
So look, I just want to say thank you so much, Lauren. Microsoft is a member of 2Ns, and so we're really happy and thrilled to have you in that organisation and sharing with us and being open to hearing more about it as well. I'd like to say thank you to your presentation is different from the one I heard last time, and which is great. And look, I took some real learnings from around the prompts. I mean, I'm going to go back and have a look, and I might even do that prompt course, although we're not a Copilot shop. I'll admit to that up front. But yeah, but how to use Copilot, and you did a great job at explaining to people how they can get into it. And I think one of the things that we want to say to people is, don't be scared to having a go, and get in there and have a crack. And particularly if you're worried about the personalization, Lauren's told you how to turn that off and the model training, so you can get in there and do those sorts of things. We've got 2 more webinars coming up before Christmas. The next one is actually only a week away, which is the same time next week, which is from our friend Vivian Chandra, who is been around quite a while, is a fellow of Internet New Zealand, but she's going to be talking about deepfakes and AI, keeping our kids safe. So yes, we're mixing it up a little bit. But Vivian's got a great course that she's pulled together on this, and so she's really happy to share it with 2Ns. And then on the 9th of December, we're doing pretty much similar to this presentation, but we're doing Google Gemini. So if you're a Google shop or you want to learn about another AI tool as well, there's no reason why you should stick to just one. Google Gemini, AJ Singh from Google APAC is going to be taking us through some of the options and opportunities you get with Google Gemini. And on that, I'd like to say once again, thank you, Lauren, and thank you all for joining. And we'll see you next week. Ka kite anō.